What's happening, guys? All right, so today I want to go over two trades, NTNX and then FSLY. So NTNX was one that I probably should have stuck with a little bit longer, but I just also did not want to get in trouble. I felt like I was kind of not necessarily guessing trend, but I felt like I was going to get into some type of chop. Like yesterday, LCI, if you guys remember, not today's action, but this action over here. I didn't want to get into a situation where it was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down around that VWAP level. So what I wanted to do was just kind of move on. And so I put a feeler on there, just like I mentioned in the room. You know, nothing of size. Just a feeler just to know, okay, I'm in the trade. Let me start to kind of focus on it. Let me see, what happens here, and I'll size in if the trade starts to set up. So I finally put on a regular entry over here, and I thought, I might have the top, and then be able to scale in under this VWAP level and potentially fade off, sort of like what happened later on. But obviously I was just a little bit early. So rather than try to be a hero, as I had mentioned, this 2480s was a very key level. You can see that by kind of just drawing a line under that level and seeing that it's basing, starts to have a little bit higher low at the 2490s. So it's not a situation or an area where you want to be fighting it. So I went ahead and, obviously I stopped out over here. Which was a miniature loss because, yes, I had one entry over here, but again, it was a feeler type trade. So when I had sized in a little bit to about half size, and then where I would have scaled if 2480s started to hold, because I had added and because it didn't do what I thought it was going to do, I went ahead and moved on. So that saved me from getting involved in any of this stuff. This was probably just somebody getting squeezed out. They got a little bit too aggressive. And as soon as they came back in, the key was the 2540 levels in my eyes. That's kind of where that squeeze came through. It did pop, but that secondary squeeze was right over here at the 2440s level. So when it started to kind of peak at that level, that's when I started to get interested again versus the 2550s level. And so anyway, I put some on, and I was like, you know what, it's probably a waste of time at this point. So I went ahead and just kind of moved on, and then I went ahead and put some more on, anticipating that 25 pullback. And, I ended up working out, came down to 2470s, 2468 range, which is where I covered. But for the most part, I missed a good portion of the downside. One, because I was trading other names, and two, just because I didn't want to get in a situation where it was going to be kind of hugging the VWAP. I actually thought it would probably come back up to VWAP, pull back, go back up, pull back. So I was trying to stay out of that. So that was that trade. And then FSLY was the trade of the day for me. This one was a really nice one. This one I've been prepared for obviously quite some time. I tried to put in the room, where I would be sizing down, and had you not sized down, obviously, I shouldn't be adding. And a few of the ads that I had, I was on the front side of the move, but I'd suggested covering into the flushes. And if you were trading, short, and you hadn't locked in, depending on your size and whatnot, depending on your plan, obviously, you need to be cautious adding, because if you go back and look at any of the other days, obviously it's been, pulling back and then squeezing out, pulling back, squeezing out. So what changed for me, and what changed with my thought process here today anyway, was the fact that it gapped up, number one. And number two, I made a couple mentions of it in the room, but it was almost like they were working through some covers today. So as it started to break out over here, it would work through a couple big covers at that level. Each of these big spikes was like a 50K kind of volume right here, and then this one was 2 rounds of that 50,000 volume. So I think they were working through somebody's sizable cover. And then what I like to see is as it finally came back in, it really started to get heavy at this area, and all the other times it was very, very light to the upside. And anytime that it started to go up, the offers kind of spread, and there wasn't much inventory on the offer. In fact, most of the volume, for the first part of the day, it was barely hitting the bids, and then when it would push up, there wasn't much inventory. So it would just kind of float up. And then what I noticed was different was after this pullback, it started to have a little bit of size on the offers for the first time of the day. And so I started sizing based off of the highs at that point. Also, you can see that it pretty much peaked out at the same price twice. So it gave me a point where, okay, I think I'm going to get this fade. I was pretty, I wouldn't say super confident, but I was pretty confident that we were going to go to the 29s today. And it worked out phenomenally. The hardest part of the trade was not necessarily getting size. I ended up taking pretty good size on this trade. And it was a pretty sizable compared to what I typically trade. And the confidence level was very, very high just because this chart. You've seen me trade this on JMIA, if you guys remember. Over here, we traded it this day, and we traded it, over here at some point. So, it should look familiar. It's a very similar type of trade, and because of that, it's a very high confidence style trade for me. I wish I did add some more on this action over here. This is a perfect situation where backside unwind. I want you guys to actually take a hard look at this, right? So this consolidation we're holding over the 33, let's just call it 3360s, okay, or 3350s. So basically VWAP's 3350s for the most part, and it's kind of basing, and it rips up. Then it finally starts to fade up. So all of this is, in my opinion, maybe a higher risk type trade. It's a, it's if you know what you're doing, that's fine. And the reason why I warn a lot in the room and stuff like that is because this type of situation, it could easily go 35, 36, 37. So you have to be okay with that. And then once I sized in over here, I need to say, okay, what's my plan here? If it starts to break through 35 and it rips over it, then, I need to go ahead and size out, or I need to, move on from the trade. So, I ended up flushing out, but, again, the being short was not the hard part. The hardest part is this the time that it's actually going to pull back? Is this the time that it's actually going to unwind? Because obviously the last how many days? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 days in a row, every dip was bought up. And every single time it came back like this, it went back up to the highs. And it came back in, it went back up to the highs. So, it starts to train everybody that, it's going to end up coming right back. So, as I go, and I ended up having about a 34 average. So I've got some down here, 3320, 3370 type ads, but for the most part, 34, 3450, and then all these were 3450 type ads. So my average overall, once I sized in, was a little bit over 34. And so for me, it was more of a 50 cent to $1 type risk trade for the potential of, maybe, $3, $4, $5 if I was right. And so I tried my best to be as patient as I could. And obviously, I did cover some over here, 30s. I really wanted the 29, but it's just difficult, right? Because you never know. And you try to do the right thing. I just wanted to take some off the table over here. And I did in the 30 teens because once I lock in a third, at least that takes the whole emotional side. Not that I had emotions in this, but I'm paid. I paid myself, and if it rallies back up a buck, then that still stinks because I've still got a lot of size, but at least I paid myself some. But then once you start covering, it starts to give you the bug of covering, and obviously you end up covering the rest. So I went down to about a half size throughout this range over here, and then I covered the rest down into the 20, 28 level. So really a nice range, but the hardest part of this trade is right here, kind of trusting that it's going to not peak. And I think that's why I didn't add, because I didn't want to go in even more size and then have it pop back up to 34. But the next hardest part was it right over here, because now you've got a buck swing, right? You just went from 31.50s down to 30, all the way back up to 31.30. And sure, if you had 1,000 shares, it's only, $1,000, $1,300 swing, but if you've got more than that, you're talking about a potential $10,000, $15,000 swing in, a matter of a couple candles. And does that mean the next swipe's going to come right back up, and then the next swipe's going to come right back up, as it has the last couple days? So that's where the real difficulty comes in, and that's pretty much why I covered a little bit over here, because the 30-15 level, I went back, I talked about it in the room, and they held it to a T. So if you go back and you actually look at this exact low right over here, you'll see on that flush out, they held the 30-15 level. So you can see the low there, LO 30-15. And then they ended up holding it a little bit higher, 30-20. So to me, that's where I had said the waterfall level is going to start. And what I meant by that is, now everybody that based their trade off of the prior lows, if that snaps, it's going to flush out. So that's where you get some wish orders lined up, and then they start to kind of cover. And like I said, I get to about half size. My goal all along was 29.17. I had a bid in there for some of it early. I had it, at 1 p.m. or so. And that was my goal. And my goal was that's going to be my first cover. I'll cover, a good chunk of it, and then we'll see what happens on the rest. And so at any rate, of course, I had a little bit of, am I being greedy, or should I let this thing work? And, this chop up, down, up, down, up, down. And even here, it comes back to 30-15s, and it comes right back up to 30-60s. Fortunately, 30-50 offer came out real fast, and then they started to attack the bid. So that was nice. It wasn't too much of a headache after that. But at any rate, that was the trade today. Nice unwind, and obviously be careful tomorrow. But the key levels is going to be 29.50s, as you can see the prior tops, all the way up to 31. So we'll see what happens with that, and. That's it. I mean, hopefully we have some good action. We did hold yesterday's low, which was down here, 27.85. I feel like it was something different. I think it was 45. Yeah, 27.45. So we ended up low today. It was 27.57. So we ended up keeping that low. And I don't necessarily think that this just ends the trade. I think that this could continue to go. I think we had a major squeeze here, but I think that it can continue to grind and hang around the 30 level. But just don't think that it has to come right back. It is definitely possible that we have a JMI situation. So basically, if it gaps down and unwinds tomorrow, I'd actually be watching for a potential rally, and I would kind of treat it and anticipate that it might come back kind of like this. So we'll see what happens. Phenomenal trade. Hopefully you guys nailed it as well, and hope you guys have a good rest of the night.